you observe these children for that past 20 years? How soon after drilling was the study done, and how long did it last?
That is a very good question. That is probably the best question yet. Okay. How soon after drilling was the study done, and how long did it last? I think what you're getting at is the question of, well, you know, it takes time for cancer to happen, even in children. And maybe it's not fair to look at cancer rates in the same year the drilling occurs. Shouldn't you lag it by a year or 2 or 3? And these results don't show the results for lagging the time between exposure and children's cancer. We did those analyses, lagging by 1 year, lagging by 3 years, and lagging by 5 years. And there was no meaningful difference in the results. A great question.
How long does it take for the chemicals to break down in the water and the air? That should give you an idea how long the study should go, at least.
How long does it take?
The
How long
chemicals
does it
take
take?
5 years to break down in the water or the air. Should the study go on for at least 5 years, if not that?
How long does it take for the chemicals to break down in the water and the air, and shouldn't that guide how long the study should go on? I'm not an environmental fate specialist. I'll give you my sense for the answer, and if somebody knows more about environmental fate of chemicals, please correct me. Things like ethylene glycol, monobutyl ether, ethylene glycol, isopropanol, methanol, they break down pretty quickly. They don't hang around. Okay, they don't hang around. Even things like petroleum distillates, if those are being used in the fracking fluid, they're certainly contaminants of concern, but they don't stay in the environment for a long time. They get oxidized away and they evaporate away, and bacteria break them down. So none of these chemicals, as far as I'm aware, is what we would call a persistent pollutant. Right? You know, when we think of persistent pollutants, I think of things like DDT, PCBs, dioxins, those classes of chemicals. I'm not aware of any of the chemicals that are used in fracking that we would call persistent pollutants. But your question is it's even better than that, because I think the real question is not how long do these chemicals persist in the environment, but how long do they persist in the human body, and do they do the kind of damage that could lead to long-term damage? In other words, how long should we study children after exposure to look for cancer risks? Okay, that's a very important issue. That really comes back to the previous gentleman's question about lag time. In other words, shouldn't you look and see what happens to the kids 5 years after fracking, not just in the year of fracking? And we did that. Okay, now I've only got 20 years of data, and fracking has really only been going on for about a decade on a large scale. So I don't have 30 years of data. I don't have it. But I have about 10 years, and based on what we have, we don't see a signal. My last closing comment is this study doesn't answer all questions. There are limits to it. It can only tell us what can be learned in about 10 years of observation after fracking begins. Okay, fair enough. Yes, sir.